Hurricane Melissa continues to rapidly intensify. Yesterday morning at this time was a strong tropical storm, now up to Category 4 intensity, with further strengthening expected today, tonight, maybe even early portion of tomorrow to Category 5 intensity. Likely to become the strongest hurricane ever experienced across Jamaica. Further impact expected across Haiti and Dominican Republic with flooding rainfall. We're also expecting this to be a major hurricane across eastern Cuba and perhaps portions of the southeastern Bahamas. And down the road, maybe some impacts coming to Bermuda and Atlantic Canada as well. We're going to talk about what's fueling the intensification, what aircraft are measuring, and who's going to be expecting the worst, and some shifts a little bit in the forecast from earlier forecast runs earlier on. So I appreciate you joining me here on this Sunday morning, a little bit unusual time, shifting the schedule around a little bit here, but this certainly is not an unanticipated strengthening episode. The waters are extremely hot across the Caribbean Sea, and we're going to talk about what that is meaning here for the forecast. You can see across the Atlantic Basin, really the only thing of concern is Hurricane Melissa, and the storm has intensified, and the core continues to show resilience to any little bit of wind shear that is left across this portion of the Caribbean Sea. We do have disturbed weather out over the central Atlantic that is not going to develop into anything. Non-tropical low pressure moving past the Azores, not expected to develop. We do have a storm system across the south central U.S. Tornado warnings right now. Just west of New Orleans on the West Bank, we could see a tornado warning for Metairie at any moment. Also watching a spin up coming across Lake Pontchartrain in the general direction of Mandeville on the North Shore. And severe weather threat continues into Mississippi this morning. So keep an eye on that if you're on the central Gulf Coast. And another storm will follow that and likely bring some very heavy rainfall eventually to the East Coast as we get into Thursday and early Friday. But right now, we're not looking at a United States threat from Melissa. That is fortunate news, but we are going to still see a lot of rain and some wind on the East Coast. Yet another coastal storm coming here later on in the week. So we're going to get talking about Melissa here. That is, of course, the issue at hand. And right now, winds estimated at 140 miles per hour, the pressure down to 944. Winds yesterday morning were about 65 to 70, so they've doubled in about 24 hours. I'm not going to act like I'm surprised. Certainly, once the core got together yesterday, that was a known. The storm is beginning to pick up a little bit of forward speed, now moving to the west at 5 miles per hour. The location, 16.3 degrees north and 76.3 degrees west. Now, these were estimated from the National Hurricane Center. There's aircraft in there now measuring, finding that the winds are maybe just a tiny bit less than what this estimate was, but still a Category 4 for sure. So the estimate may have come in just a bit high, but nonetheless, there are still signs the storm is strengthening. So we're getting right to that estimate as we speak. And it doesn't really matter if you're in Jamaica. This is going to be a catastrophe for you where it hits in particular, but also because it's moving slowly. We are going to continue to have tremendous amounts of rain overspreading the island from east to west as the storm takes its sweet time moving south of the island, then eventually makes a hard right turn and slams into the island Monday night and Tuesday, and not even leaving until we get to Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Then after that, it'll be Cuba's problem and then the Bahamas problem as well. So here is a look at the aircraft last night, which showed the storm actually came a little bit farther to the south, giving it more time over water. This is Jamaica right over here. The pressure when a lot of us maybe were getting ready for bed was 972 millibars, Category 2 strength. Then as the aircraft were leaving the hurricane, the last fix was 959. That's Category 3. So in a matter of a few hours, the pressure dropped 13 millibars. That's a very high rate of a drop. And winds came up, and this was measured at about 2:30 in the morning Eastern time. You can see the microwave imagery indicated overnight that the storm structure continued to get better and better, indicating a very healthy core of the storm. So at this point, with no wind shear and no landfall, at least expected today or tonight, the only thing that's going to keep this storm from strengthening further will be an internal process called an eye wall replacement, which allows the center of the storm to basically contract and then expand, and a temporary weakening phase. And then that follows with a larger spread of the storm. And usually that indicates a pressure rise, which will initially weaken the storm center, but then make it bigger, which maybe makes it a weaker storm, but also makes it a more impactful storm, except where the center hits. Here's a look at the water vapor image going back to yesterday. showing you that the wind shear has dropped off. There's a little bit of light wind shear. It's just not really impacting the storm. You can kind of see a little bit of wind shear coming in from the north, a little dry air here, but other than that, this is optimal for rapid intensification, a very well-defined core, and the mountains of Jamaica not really sending enough dry air in here to disturb this core. In fact, that little nudge to the south, just enough to give this the optimal location in the Caribbean to get it to strengthen to where it is. Sometimes those little bit of miles and a little bit of nudges actually give it the amount of push that it needs to get it to really intensify. Here's a look at the infrared from last night to now, and you can see just a very healthy structure with cold thunderstorm tops continuing to rotate around the center. I'll zoom in and you can see the eye, which had grown, is now starting to contract, indicating further strengthening. Unfortunately, you can see bands of very heavy rain off to the east of the center continuing to push northward into Hispaniola and into the southwestern portion of Haiti, where there are mountains and where there's been incredible amounts of rain. So this is not just a Jamaican storm, but a storm for Hispaniola of destructive magnitude. And while we're not seeing hurricane force or really even tropical storm force wind across Hispaniola, we are still getting tremendous amounts of rainfall, which is going to lead to disastrous consequences if it already hasn't in southern portions of Haiti and certainly in the mountainous areas in the south-facing ridges of Dominican Republic. And a lot of the Caribbean's population is up against these areas. In fact, Hispaniola is the largest island population-wise in the Caribbean. We're talking millions of people potentially impacted by this. Jamaica is a large island population-wise, and Cuba is a larger island. Both of them are going to be impacted as well. Here is a look at a zoom in of the latest infrared, and you can see cold thunderstorm tops continuing to rotate. We have what are called mesovortices. These continue to get those winds up around the center here. The eye is contracting, so my guess is that when the aircraft go back through the center again, they're going to see a stronger storm. And the storm is not showing any signs of weakening, so it's very likely it's going to get up to Category 5 at some point here today. Officially, the forecast has that happening this evening. I wouldn't be totally shocked if it happened before lunchtime or around lunchtime. And you can see here now that the sun is coming out, just a very healthy storm system. And if that eye continues to shrink, then that is, of course, going to be a worst case scenario as far as this storm goes. The eye is now due south of the eastern end of Jamaica, of the St. Thomas province. It is still moving west at about 5 miles per hour. So it is going to parallel the island about 100 miles to its south. Bands of heavy rain will be spreading east to west across the island. You can see now the heaviest rain on the island. And I had it loaded, but a Jamaican website here, unfortunately, struggling with traffic. Indicates a shrinking eye, but it also indicates bands of very heavy rain spreading now east to west across the island. And, if it goes a little farther south, that's actually a little bit better for Jamaica in that it pushes the heaviest rain just south of the island. But it also gives the storm more time to strengthen. So eventually, once it comes on shore, it's actually stronger. So kind of a catch-22 here. If it comes a little farther north, we're talking higher amounts of rain. So I guess it's a pick your poison situation, but either way you slice it, it's not a good situation here at all. Here's the aircraft measurements showing that the pressure dropped substantially last night through the center here. I may have actually shown that, but here's a graphic that shows that the pressure from drop zones has continued to drop, and you can see the rate of intensification last night actually was at its highest. You can see the steeper slope here between about 9 o'clock last night and about midnight. It's still strengthening very rapidly at this point, you can see, but maybe not quite as much as it was last night. If that eye contracts, though, we could see that rate of intensification pick up once again. Even if not, it's still a very healthy strengthening storm. And you can see the latest fix here showing that the pressure 952 millibars. So maybe not quite as strong as what the National Hurricane Center estimate of 944 millibars was, but still a very intense storm. They're going to make a loop around the eastern side and go back through the middle here, probably at about 8:30 to 9 a.m., and we'll see if the storm is still strengthening. If you look at this graph from Alex Borum's site, cyclonicweather.com, the one thing that does stick out to you is that the eye is warming. The air temperature of the eye is about 23 or 24 degrees Celsius, indicating a very intense system. You can see winds around the eye are close to Category 4 strength, and the pressure is still dropping into the lower 950s or even high 940s. So a very healthy structure in place still. And you can see that drop sign measured winds that were 160 to 170 miles per hour, about 3,000 feet up. So we have islands in Jamaica that are 3,000 to 4,000 feet. And those kind of winds could be felt in those mountains as the storm comes on, assuming it doesn't change any intensity between now and then. So key messages from the Hurricane Center. This is time to take action if you already haven't, if you're in Jamaica. These are strong words. We're going to see life-threatening flash flooding, catastrophic and numerous landslides before even the heaviest winds come on Monday night and early Tuesday. The kind of structural damage comparable to some of the storms we've seen in the past, like Helene in the mountains of North Carolina, like Dorian back on the Bahamas, many others. Long periods of communication outages, communities that are isolated, and life-threatening storm surge, especially just to the east of where this storm comes on shore Monday night and Tuesday morning. In Haiti, we're already dealing with catastrophic flooding. That is going to continue. This storm is not going to leave until we get into Wednesday and moves into the Bahamas. We're still going to have flooding in Haiti for the next 3 days. Lots of rain still coming, unfortunately. Still heavy rain as well for the next couple of days across the Dominican Republic. Numerous landslides are going to continue across the South Mountains. And we are going to see a lot of wind and rain and destructive storm surge in parts of eastern Cuba, the southeastern Bahamas. And we'll have to monitor this as well in the Turks and Caicos. We do have a hurricane watch for portions of eastern Cuba. And you can see here, hurricane force winds right now have remained well offshore. Tropical storm force winds are just brushing the far eastern portion of Jamaica, just now moving on to St. Thomas and maybe into Portland parishes and the far southwestern portion of Tiburon Peninsula in Haiti as well. We currently have hurricane warnings for Jamaica, hurricane watches for eastern Cuba, for southwestern Haiti, tropical storm warning as well for southwestern Haiti. In reality, I don't think we're going to see hurricane conditions on Haiti. That watch may eventually get dropped, but tropical storm warnings are still necessary, as the storm will probably grow by the time we get into Tuesday. We may get those tropical storm conditions as the storm is leaving Jamaica and moving towards Cuba. And as we take a look at rainfall amounts, this is the part that I think drops my jaw the most. It's the amount of rain that's predicted, possibly up to 40 inches, and that could still be underdone in the Blue Mountains of eastern Jamaica. We could see amounts around Kingston of 20, 30, maybe 40 inches as well, up to 30 inches more across southwestern Haiti and up to 20 inches over portions of southwestern Dominican Republic. These are going to cause tremendous amounts of flooding. Cuba, we're going to see amounts over a foot, maybe up to as much as 16 inches. There are mountains here as well that I think could see over 20 inches of rain. Even though the storm is moving faster, by the time it comes through here, the mountains will probably increase those rain rates. And then by the time this gets into the southeast Bahamas, the rainfall amounts do come down probably closer to 8 inches. Here's the potential of hurricane force winds. And I'm a little shocked that it's only 60% here over Manchester, Clarendon, and St. Elizabeth parishes. I do think these will come up to 90%. It's a big storm. We will also see these amounts coming up as well across portions of Santiago and Guantanamo, provinces of Cuba as well, and probably over Crooked Island and potentially Inagua and some of the other islands of the southeastern Bahamas. The likeliest time to see those strong winds moving on shore is going to be in the morning on Monday for southeastern Jamaica, during the afternoon for southwestern Jamaica, and then the rest of Jamaica during the nighttime hours of Monday, and then early on Tuesday across southwestern Haiti, during the day Tuesday across southern Cuba, Tuesday evening across the mountains and eastern northeast coast of Cuba, and then late Tuesday night, Wednesday morning across southeastern portions of the Bahamas, maybe the Turks and Caicos. And then if you're in Bermuda, you do have the possibility of seeing stronger winds moving in later Thursday evening and continuing into early on Friday as well. Here's the official track from the Hurricane Center. You can see zoomed in here. The Hurricane Center predicting Category 5 for late tonight into much of Monday. they are indicating maybe there'll be a little brief period of weakening, maybe due to an eye wall replacement. Does it really matter if you're in Jamaica if it's 150 or 160? Me personally, I don't think so. It's going to be a very powerful storm regardless. Some of our models are indicating, though, that this curve could come out a little bit farther to the west. I'm going to show you in a little bit. Some of our hurricane models are indicating maybe a more severe curve before a turn back in this direction, and a less likelihood of a turn towards Kingston, which we saw in some of our models yesterday. That's something I'll be monitoring for you because it is fairly important, because it could bring the strongest winds into this portion of Jamaica rather than in this portion. Regardless, it will be destructive because of the rain, because of the onshore surge. But I would say right now, I'd be most concerned about areas along Long Bay, places south of Mandeville and Manchester and St. Elizabeth. Still could be a very big problem for Clarendon County and maybe St. Catherine. But Kingston, we're still going to see hurricane force winds. Ocho Rios could really get hit hard as this is coming back out. And there's still a chance that this could get really bad in Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, some of the northwestern parishes of Jamaica if this shifts all the way to the western side. Regardless, it's going to hit Jamaica. It's just a question of where does that landfall happen? Is it end up shifting west 50 miles, or is there some way that this comes back to the right? Just due to the fact that the storm has strengthened some and lost some latitude makes me think that there's a better chance it may try to come back out this direction. But again, we're going to have to monitor every little wobble because it will make a big difference. Intensity forecast, we're already up to about Category 4. Our rapid intensification models are going Category 5 at this point, with the exception of one of them. That could occur as soon as this afternoon or this evening. After that, we're going to have eye wall fluctuations. The ceiling of this storm is pretty high, maybe as much as 180 miles per hour, probably not 200, probably not a record breaker, but nonetheless, it very likely looks like a Category 5, which would put it at the third Category 5 hurricane of the season. Last year, we had 2 Category 5s. The only time we've seen more than 3 is back in 2005 when we had 4 of them. So even though this season has not had a hurricane hit the United States and has had fewer storms, still the fact that we've had 4 majors and 3 of them get to Category 5 is very remarkable and a concerning one for sure. Here again are the tracks, and you can see just a slight shift back to the west. And I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see the cluster is more towards the west central portion of Jamaica, whereas yesterday it was more towards the eastern portion of Jamaica. But everything showing Jamaica getting hit, and all of that is going to happen in about 48 hours. And then we see eastern Cuba, kind of a split between Santiago de Cuba and Guantanamo. But Santiago is the second most populous city in Cuba. Guantanamo, I believe, is the 5th. And then we have a track through the southeastern Bahamas, but we still want to watch it if we're in Inagua, Matthew Town for sure. Still keep an eye on it in the Turks and Caicos, but this will probably avoid the central and western Bahamas and no threat to the United States. Bermuda, we need to watch as well. Bermuda is right in the middle of the path of this. I think the island's right about here. And then it's looking more and more likely that the storm track is not going to try to come back up towards the United States. And probably not Atlantic Canada, but we do have a few outliers that still show a threat to Newfoundland at this time. But the trend has been more off to the right, which is good news. And you can see the grand ensemble actually shows us making a recurve. So we'll keep an eye on that for you here. But the intensity forecast still very daunting, with a high number of Google DeepMind models still indicating that this has a very high chance of being a Category 5, and it already is a Category 4, so the model's still playing catch up. And high end intensity possibility of 168 knots, which is close to 190 miles per hour. So not the strongest storm we've ever seen, but certainly an intense one. And if you look at the latest HAVS hurricane regional model, you'll see that the storm is likely to continue to deepen as it moves westward here this afternoon, approaching Category 5 intensity this evening, and continuing to deepen. In fact, this particular run shows it leveling off tonight and then shows another period of intensification starting tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow night, with the pressure actually dropping more late tomorrow night into Tuesday morning down into the 910s, and actually hitting at its strongest peak around midday on Tuesday, making that landfall just to the south of Mandeville in Jamaica, maybe right on Long Bay, as a 913. So even though the Hurricane Center goes with a little bit of weakening in the 12 hours before landfall. The HAVS model is saying it's actually going to hit at its strongest point. I don't know which will be correct, but I would prepare for the worst at this point. And the other point I want to make here is that this model has become stronger. You can see the shift to a stronger storm and the shift more to the southwest, about a 50-mile shift. So we're going to be monitoring that trend pretty closely. After the hit on Jamaica, it moves across the island and does weaken, probably a category 3 as it comes across Jamaica, and then hits somewhere between Santiago and Guantanamo, and maybe very close to Santiago, which would also be a worst case for eastern Cuba. If you think about it here, we don't want to ignore that risk. There are mountains in eastern Cuba that weaken the storm, but as it comes out, it's actually going to get bigger. And we're looking at a track likely over Crooked Island or just to the east of Crooked Island, and then continuing as a very large storm that loses some tropical characteristics. And you'll see the storm very likely could come close to Bermuda, with the HAVS model showing a track that brings Bermuda into the western eye wall with some very high wind potential. That could shift, but again, something that we need to be watching very closely as we get into Thursday and Friday. Here's a look at the radar for Jamaica. And because the storm's a little farther south, we may not see the worst of rain on Jamaica just yet over the next 2 days, but the worst is very likely on Tuesday and continuing Tuesday night, then improving as we get into Wednesday. Cuba's worst weather is going to be Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, and then gradual improvement. The Bahamas will see their worst weather Wednesday and Wednesday evening, and then this will impact Bermuda as we get to later Thursday night and early in the day on Friday. And then looking at wind potential, again, just one model, but you can see the storm largely avoids Jamaica with tropical storm force winds on the southern side of the island and in the mountains, starting later today and continuing tonight, picking up some tomorrow, picking up more tomorrow night, and then really getting nasty as we get into Tuesday. Now, we're still looking at hurricane conditions potentially in Kingston. So 1 million or more Jamaicans are going to see hurricane force winds, but we will see likely where this eye comes inland, the potential for wind gusts to exceed 180 to 190 miles per hour, especially over the water. And that will cause some widespread destruction where this eventually makes its landfall here on Tuesday. For Cuba, we're going to be dealing with wind gusts that are going to be in excess of 100 miles per hour, maybe even up to 130. And you can see Guantanamo Bay will certainly see strong wind depending on where this comes inland. The only way that they get less wind is if the eye somehow comes east of them on Wednesday morning. And right now, that is not the prediction according to this model. As it comes through the Bahamas, we are likely looking at wind gusts over 100 miles per hour as well. And the storm is going to be getting bigger as it begins to feel the trough to its west. Looking down the road here, again, don't look at the pressure for the European. It's going to be wrong. It's way too weak. But you get an idea that the heavy rains continue across this entire region. In fact, Haiti and Hispaniola are still dealing with heavy rain into Wednesday before things hopefully let up a little bit. But even Thursday, we're still dealing with rain. Now, there's a big trough in the eastern United States. Some of the tropical moisture gets linked up into this on Thursday. You see that heavy rain moves into the mid-Atlantic United States, but the storm does not get drawn into it. There's just a little bit of a linkage between the two. You'll see there's a break coming, and then we get more moisture in the Western Caribbean, unfortunately, next weekend. And we do need to watch this area because it doesn't just get sunny and beautiful behind this storm. In fact, we have a high that builds into the eastern United States next week, and we've got a front that stalls over Cuba. So many of the areas that are getting hit by Melissa are going to be getting hit with more rain as we get into the beginnings of November, maybe the middle of November as well. And, you take a look here at this storm that's coming into the eastern United States, and we've got upper low after upper low here. We got a lot of rain for the southeast to start the week, then a lot more rain coming for the East Coast Wednesday, Thursday, and early on Friday. So a big rainmaker, but that front gets stuck. Oops, sorry about that. Don't know how to get this off the screen. A lot of that rain gets stuck. So we're talking a lot of rain for the eastern seaboard here, 5 to maybe 10 inches for some areas from North Carolina up to Long Island. I know the model's showing 3, but I think there'll be more. But unfortunately, we could see lowering pressure in the southwestern Caribbean when we get into the first or second week of November. And it's possible down the road that low pressure could try to form here again. And we may see another tropical system developing. But, whether or not that happens is to be seen. I think the greater concern is going to be the fact that it doesn't just dry out completely around Jamaica and Cuba and maybe Haiti. We get more rain and perhaps substantial rain, depending on what does try to spin up over here. And it may not be an organized system. And we don't need an organized system to cause trouble. We just need flooding. But the point I want to make here is that behind this system, we have more rain in the forecast and potentially very heavy rainfall. You could see a very high anomaly of significant rain in the Western Caribbean, which includes the Cayman Islands, Central America, and unfortunately maybe Jamaica and Cuba and possibly Haiti as well. So things are going to stay wet down in here. Whether or not we get a storm center to try to form, and the European indicates something may get stuck near Central America. There's even a couple of members that try to pull this up through Cuba. I really hope not, but something that we need to watch. And the GFS even tries to spin up some low pressure near the Yucatan. It's been kind of back and forth on a weaker low forming somewhere in the northwestern Caribbean. But whatever does try to form down here, it's just way too soon to try to figure out at this point. Just know that it looks like it's going to be wet again for the beginning of the month of November. Now, the Google DeepMind, which has done its best, has very limited support for an actual tropical system at this point. So we'll keep monitoring that for you. But I appreciate everybody's time here. I do have a new advisory from the National Hurricane Center I want to share with you all. And you can see that the National Hurricane Center has left the winds at 140 miles per hour. They have brought the pressure up from 944, which was an estimate, to an actual measured 952. The storm is moving west at 5 miles per hour. That's about as fast as it's moved here in the last 5 days. It's actually jogging now at about the speed I jog at. I'm not very fast. And the location is 16.3 degrees north and 76.4 degrees west. It is still strengthening. I do think the Hurricane Center did estimate without data ground truth, so it probably overestimated, but the storm is still strengthening. When we went to bed last night, it was 100 miles per hour. It's 140 now. It's probably not going to be 180 this evening, but I could see it at 160 to 170. Regardless, this storm is a very serious storm. It is one to take very seriously. Now is the time to make those last-minute preparations in Jamaica, and certainly in Cuba, you need to be doing the same as well. I appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you learned something. I hope everybody takes this seriously. If you have not yet subscribed, I urge you to do so. It doesn't cost you a penny. It helps me get my information out to more folks. More importantly, it helps you out. And I will be back tomorrow morning with my next video. I normally will do something in the afternoon or evening. It is Sunday, and I've got plans with my family that take me off site. But I do appreciate you for doing that. Everybody here is welcome, but most importantly, as a Christian, I give all the honor and glory to God. And I do want to end with a quick devotional because today is the Lord's Day. Preach the word, be prepared in season and out of season, correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instruction. You may not be a Christian believer like I am, and you may not believe what I believe, but I truly believe that God has called me to preach the word, much like Paul tells Timothy in this epistle. To be prepared in season and out of season, what that means is that God wants those who have chosen to follow him and made the choice to follow Jesus to be ready, whether or not they're going through difficulties in their life, but be ready to share the gospel, to share the good news that Jesus is coming again. To correct, to rebuke, and to encourage is really to help those who are struggling in their faith or those who do not currently make the choice to believe and follow Jesus, to encourage them and to be patient with them and to carefully instruct. It's very easy for somebody like me who once was not a believer in Christ to judge somebody who makes poor decisions, but we all sin. It's very easy to remember where I was before and go back and say, well, I made a decision not to be that way, and so others shouldn't live that way. But in all honesty, I'm here to do this because God has called me to encourage somebody else, to show them that there is light at the end of this dark tunnel. There is eternal life, and you can change where you spend eternity. We are all forgiven through Christ if we make the choice to repent and turn to him. Whether it's in season or out of season, there is hope for a bright future. And eternity lasts forever. Your life does not. I really hope you make that choice to follow Christ. And I really hope that you encourage others if you already are a believer. There are folks in the Caribbean that are going to need our encouragement. There are folks in other parts of the world that need it every day. I hope you feel encouraged by this message that I have to share today. And I thank you for your time today. God bless you all. And we will see you again tomorrow. See ya.